Another state shifter, quiet time, meditation. But meditation's hard, right? Is anyone in here like amazing at meditation? Yes, I love it. But not a lot of hands. Not a lot of hands. Our next guest has reinvented meditation. He's bridging the science between spirit and science and actually making it a little bit easier for all of us and really impactful. We are so excited to bring up Dr. Patrick Porter. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yes. So founder and inventor of BrainTap, which is down in the expo hall if you haven't experienced it yet.
Who's tried BrainTap in here? Okay, by the end of the day, like all the hands, you got to be up. You got to try BrainTap downstairs.
Yes. I'd have to just share, I tried the BrainTap at a conference just like this about 6 years ago. I tried it and I immediately bought one. I have used it almost every single day for 6 years. It is the one biohack that I can't live without. So Dr. Porter's changed my life. More about him. He's a brain researcher, mental coach, meditation leader, best-selling author. He has been on the cutting edge of brainwave entrainment for 32 years. So he's been doing this a long time. Very impressive. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Porter.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome. Yeah, I've been doing it actually a little longer than that. That's an old bio. When I was 12 years old, my dad was a Silva instructor. Anybody ever heard of the Silva method? Okay, my dad was a chronic alcoholic, and the Catholic Church came over and said, Mike, we're going to teach you how to relax. You see, he started laughing. But that night, he went to a relaxation seminar and never drank again because he found out he wasn't drinking to get high, he was drinking to get balanced. It changed our family's life. I was a real troublemaker. I was held back in second grade. I think Sister Barbara really liked me, so she wanted me back in her class. And then what happened was he started teaching me, and my dad changed his whole parenting paradigm. Instead of sending us to a room and saying, hey, go think about what you did, which I think is a bad thing for parents to do, because that's how our prison systems work, and they don't work very well. The biggest business in the world today is building prisons. That's not a really good model. What he'd send us to do is he would send us with a book. And I still remember the first book he sent me with all one summer because I got in trouble a lot. It was called As a Man Thinketh. I had to read that book and I'd have to come out and tell my dad how I was going to apply that knowledge in my life. It changed my life. And he also taught me the Silva method, which was a technique. They had something called the Silva sound. If you've been there, it's a really weird sound they play in the seminar while it's going. It's an isochronic tone that gets you to alpha. Think of alpha. I'm going to talk about some brainwaves. I'll try to explain them as I go. Alpha is like neutral to the brain. So if you need to move from any place in space and time, you need to change gears, right? If you want to go forwards or backwards in a car, you got to move through neutral. So alpha is neutral. But when you're in alpha, you have discretionary access to the most powerful part of you, your innate intelligence. Now the problem is, most people, when they meditate, and we've measured about 30,000 brains over the last 10 years, I've only met 4 people that know how to meditate. 4 people, even in India, because their default mode network, which the Dalai Lama, which he showed up here, calls the monkey mind. Because as soon as you close your eyes, 30% of your brain goes dormant. The circuitry shuts off. You go into a state of fear. You start listening to the talk about who you are, what you're about. And the reality is, your best thinking brought you here. Congratulations. You need an upgrade. But you don't have to pay Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. The upgrade's within you. For those of you that remember AOL, they used to send a CD out. And they'd send the CD out and they said, hey, it's free, but if you want to activate the full program, you have to call us up. We're going to give you a code for that CD. All the information was on that CD. That's your cells. All the information about you is inside of you right now. You just need the code. You can't access it in beta. That's your wide awake brain. That's your reactionary brain. That's the one that keeps us safe when we're driving, hopefully, but it's not good for making changes in our life. It's the fear, the frustration, the anxiety state. So we want to change that. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about that and how that works. We need to get you into what Dr. Vu says is the thrive state. And by the way, we have 2 sessions by Dr. Vu on BrainTap. We have a couple sessions by the biohacking babes too for jet lag. So we try to include all the biohackers into it because this is the brain hack that if you're not doing it, I don't care what else you do. You're not going to change your body. Your physiology starts from your brain. And there's 2 things you got to think about. Are you a positive thinker or are you a negative thinker? Do you look at life as a challenge or do you look at it as a threat? And what I'm going to explain to you is if you look at your life as a threat, you're actually producing 200 times less light energy at the mitochondrial level. They've proven this in science. This is not a beliefs seminar. I don't want you to believe anything I'm saying. Save that for Sunday morning. I'm going to teach you about science. This is all science now, and it sounds a lot like metaphysics, but quantum physics is bridging the gap between what we think is medical science and real science. They call it transcendent knowledge. There's knowledge that you get in books, and by the way, you were the smartest person you will ever be when you were born. You were 100% connected. Your brain was operating at 18.1 volts. You could learn, you could demonstrate, you had choices, you had decisions to make, and you made them on the fly because you had the energy to do so. As we age, unfortunately, something happens to our brain. By the time we're 21, that brain will regulate at about 10.1 volts. If it drops below 7 volts, you're going to start showing up as somebody with dementia. If it drops below 4 volts, you're going to start showing symptoms of Alzheimer's. In our study we did right down here in Florida, in Tampa, Florida, with Dr. Kelly Miller, there's a book out called Saving Your Brain, where we talked about the whole study. Every person in that study within 6 weeks using BrainTap was off the dementia scale in 6 weeks because we got to bring energy to the cells. And I'm going to explain that to you during this talk, how that happens. It didn't happen through supplements. It didn't happen from anything else but laying down, relaxing, and using light, sound, and vibration. Now, when you add those other things, which I'm going to talk about, which are very important, you accelerate the process. So everything's important. Now, what I'm saying here is not the only way. In almost every device you see out there in the biohacking world, as long as it's not PMF, we have PMF in our lab, but you can't use the high-powered PMF at the same time as BrainTap because it clicks through the earphones and causes a problem. But everything else we pair with it. We call it biostacking. So you want to stack your hacks, in other words. Why not spend 20 minutes doing 3 or 4 things instead of one thing? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So when we're talking about this, we have a big problem in the world today. They say that's 4 billion people. I would say it's 8 billion people, and whoever was just born today, it's them too. Everybody is under chronic low-level stress. Is there anybody in the room that's too happy right now? Okay, so if you're too happy, go ahead and take your cell phone on and go to CNN and watch it for about 3 to 4 minutes. You'll be depressed, anxious, and worried. These people, the news has to scour the whole planet to get us bad news, right? The whole planet to get us 1 hour of bad news. I challenge you to find good news in your own home, in your own community, in your own life, and turn off the news that they're programming us with. Fear, frustration, and anxiety is the death kill for the brain. As soon as you do that, your frontal lobe, which is the most important part of reasoning and why we're separated from the monkeys and all the other animals, blood flow stops there. The amygdala gets hijacked. Now you're acting out of your reactionary mind, not your intuitive mind, which is your alpha brain. Most Americans that we have scanned, the 30,000 brains, are lacking in alpha and theta brainwaves. In fact, most of them don't have theta at all. So it's like autism for adults, because autistic children don't have alpha. We did a study in California, and we took kids that were doing magnetic resonant therapy. At the time, it was a $1 million machine. And they were testing the kids out. Every parent had to pay $6,000 to get them into this machine. They ruled out 40% of those kids. All those parents paid $6,000. I said, Dr. Handy, can we go ahead and gift these kids a BrainTap and we'll track them for 6 weeks, the same amount of time as the study that they were doing? I said, I want to know if we can increase their alpha. We can't do it like magnetic resonant therapy does. It can do it like right now. It shifts the brain. Now, there's better technology today than there was back then. And we're talking to some people about that. But at that time, when they did their study, they got 27% alpha change when they first did it. So they hit the brain, they assaulted the brain with magnetic resonance, the brain shifted, they got 27%. In 6 weeks, they went back and checked those children, none of them kept their alpha. They didn't train the brain, they assaulted the brain. Now they do different therapies about that. What we did is we had them do it every day for 10 minutes. Our kids, as soon as they got up to 23% alpha, which happened at about the 6th week, 90% of them started speaking without any speech pathologist. You are inherently intelligent. You already know what to do. Your body is designed to heal. Your brain's designed to heal. We just got to get out of the way. let it happen. This innate intelligence, once activated, will do what it does. It heals you. That's what it does. So we're going to talk about that. But stress is a perception of stress. It's not reality. That's why some people can handle stressful events, and they're great. Those are the people that get paid the most money. Those are the entrepreneurs, the biohackers, the ones that are checking themselves out every day, and they're saying, wow, look at what this is to my body. The others are pretending they don't know. When Deepak Chopra said 97% of what's going to happen to you tomorrow, you know about today, what are you pretending not to know? Could you imagine going to the movies, watching a movie where the actors and actresses never rehearsed? They just made the shit up? That's what people do every day. And then at the end of the day, go, I can't believe it. I can't believe I ate the whole thing like the old commercial. What do you mean? You were right there. You were eating it. We have this amnesia. The reality is that we have to rehearse. My favorite, I've written 10 books. I have a new book coming out I'm going to tell you about in October 21st, The Brain Fitness Blueprint from Hay House. But what I say is you get what you rehearse in life, not what you intend. Your intentions are good. Don't get me wrong. You got to have good intentions. But the road to hell is paved with what? Great intentions. If you want to go to hell, keep your intentions. If you want results in your life, start rehearsing. You've got to become the person in your mind first before you'll ever feel it in your body. If you don't believe it up here, you're never going to experience it here. Or if you do experience it here, you're going to sabotage it. You're going to figure out how to lose it all. I still remember one of my favorite clients, one of my first clients actually, and I was just starting out, and they would take me to Scottsdale, Arizona. That's where my office was. And they drove me to his house, and I went through, I had to have a phone to get in the first door, a phone to get in the second door, and they put me in this suite, and it was a guest house. It was beautiful. And this guy comes in, and he spoke English, but he wanted to speak Spanish. And I said, well, I can't help you speak Spanish. And he says, no, you don't understand. When I was a kid, I could speak fluent Spanish. But when I grew up, people made fun of me, so I learned to forget that part of myself. He said, when I get on radio and TV shows, I can't remember anything because stress. So I want everybody to stand up for me for a moment before I end the story. Stand up a minute. What I want you to do while you're standing is balance on one foot, whatever one you're comfortable with, and start a circle with the other foot. As you're doing that circle, I want you to write your name in the air. So you're doing the circle, you're writing your name. And notice some people are laughing. That's the nervous system. That's what laughter is. Go ahead and sit down. How many people found that you could write your name, but when you looked down at your circle, it was going analog? How many people couldn't remember how to spell their name because they're doing the circle? This is what stress does. Imagine the world's computer systems. Under stress, half the world's computer systems go down. Your brain does that every day because of the nervous system, because of the way we're trained. We should be doing more with both hands. We should be doing more with our thinking, critical thinking. But we're training ourselves to use one hand, which means we have one brain that's working all the time. And under stress, the other brain goes down. But when I ask you a question like, what's your favorite vacation? How many people can remember their favorite vacation, right? You had to actually light up 10 different regions of the brain. Now, if you have 10.1 volts or more, that was easy. The memories came back, color, sound, experiences, even the richness, maybe a meal you remember, the people you were with. Maybe you haven't thought about that in a while, but it's just as fresh as yesterday. But if you're a little bit low on voltage, and you send that command to the brain, and you have 7 volts of energy, it says, you know what? I can't bring you the colors for that picture. You can remember the feeling, but maybe you can't remember the sounds. And the brain does something called neural pruning. It starts to say that memory is just not that important, even though it's one of your most important memories. It starts to prune. That's why I said when you were born, you were the most intelligent person you will ever be. As we age, you get stupider and dumber. The more educated a person is, the dumber they become because they don't have critical thinking. As soon as you collapse, in the world of infinite possibilities, if you have one choice, which means you went to school to learn one book, like our medical doctors, unfortunately, most of them, they have one way of thinking. I'm going to give you a pill for every ill, but you can't have a pill without a skill. And I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. So when you think about, if you only have one choice, you have a phobia. If you have 2 choices, you have a dilemma. But if you have 3 or more, you now have choices. Our brain is set up to be in a field of infinite possibilities. How do we do that? We have to have energy. That's called neurogenesis. I can't save the brain cells you lost in college or in high school or whenever you did those things. You don't need those. You need the brain of today. You need neurogenesis. You need new brain cells. And your brain is creating them all the time at any age. There is no time in your life that you can't rebuild your brain. Your brain is like your liver. As long as you have enough of your liver will grow back. Your brain is the same way. You can increase your brain's proficiency and efficiency today by doing some of the techniques. Actually, Dr. Vu did a lot of the techniques. I'm kind of editing my talk because he did a lot of my talk, of what I usually talk about. That was a great talk. So when you think about it, it's about, we call brain fitness. Back in the 70s, when I was going to school, we tried to put a gym into our Catholic school, get weights and put them in there. Mothers actually petitioned to not let us put the gym in because they said building muscle would stunt our growth. Now today, nobody would argue that building muscle is good for our brain, something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. This creates neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, we can't measure every neuron connection in your brain. What we can measure is the energy in your brain. And then there's a math problem. There's an equation. They can say, if you have this much energy in your brain, we know you have this much neuroplasticity. The key is energy. The whole problem in our world today is not a psychological problem. How many people have heard we had a mental health crisis? I love it when I get on. I'm one of the people on Fox News, on TV and radio, where they call for brain stuff and probably do 10 to 15 interviews every week. And they're always blown away. They go, tell us about the mental health crisis. I said, it's a lie. There is no mental health crisis. There's a physiological crisis. People aren't moving and breathing. They're eating shit. Sugar is the most toxic thing you can put in your body. Now, if you can mitigate that, if you're using enough, see, your body can only have 1 tablespoon of sugar circulating in the bloodstream. If not, something happens. Your liver kicks in and has to dump that. When you have a stressful event, that's 25 grams of sugar. That's 5 tablespoons, just from one stressful event. So when somebody says, I'm diabetic, but I don't eat sugar. No, I've never met anybody with a carbohydrate deficiency. Your body creates all the sugar you need. But that liver is only supposed to do that 2 to 3 times a day. But if you look at your phone and you're one of those pessimists, that 300 times a day you're looking at it, what the hell's happening? What's going on? And you click on the phone, you get a stress response, you just pump that sugar into your system. Your body doesn't know the difference between the stressful event on your cell phone, in traffic, with your relatives, your neighbors, your kids, or a bear chasing you. Immediately, a system of your body kicks in. A fat storage hormone is released called insulin. That fat storage hormone is released, and then what it does is it gobbles up all the sugar in your bloodstream, all of it, and puts it in places you don't want it, the adipose tissue. Now, if you could say, I want the fat here and here and here, and you could sculpt it, that might be okay, but we don't get a choice to do that. The body says, you know what? Most people are walking around with about a year's worth of energy on their body, but they're metabolically locked because of stress. When I was featured in People magazine, and this was in 2006, and we sent them 1,000 people because they contacted us and said, have you ever had anybody lose half their weight and keep it off for more than 5 years? I said, that's the norm at my franchise. That's not the abnormal thing. We did it every day, all day, in 58 locations because we changed what they were eating. It wasn't what they were eating, it was eating them. It was their thoughts that were causing the problem because it's all about frequency. Frequency, what you frequently see. Frequency. If you're a high-frequency person, you see high-frequency food, you see high-frequency activities, you see high-frequency to-dos. If you're low-frequency, guess what? You see low-frequency food, low-frequency activities, low-frequency foods. There's 2 people you're going to hang out in this world if you want to separate them into 2. There's gainers and drainers. Okay? When you come to these conferences, you're around gainers. These are people that are spending their time, the most valuable commodity on earth, to learn how to improve themselves. There's a whole bunch of people that should be here that aren't, that are blaming the health of their body on some medical person because they think our sick care system is going to make them healthy. I hear every week where they go, I went to my doctor, but he said I'm not bad enough yet. When you get bad enough, we'll do another test because they don't know about health. When I was asked with some people working with Robert Kennedy, what would I say to him? I'd say, first of all, change their name. They are not a healthcare system. They're a sick care system, emergency care system. There's a whole different group called healthcare. You don't have to be injured, damaged. Your body knows exactly what to do, but it's not going to come in a pill. You need a skill. That skill is a lifestyle, what Dr. Vu was talking about. So that's what we're going to continue on with. So the power is in your thoughts. When they did the study after COVID, they said, did you look at life as a challenge or did you look at it as a threat? What they found out was those people that looked at COVID as a challenge actually produced 200 times more energy at the mitochondrial level. Now, why is that important? You are a light being. They've proven it now. If I could take Dr. Leva here, I could take her DNA, pull it out of her body, nail it down to the floor, it would go to Pluto. Now that DNA is a viscous material flowing around every cell, system, and organ of the body. Its only job, one of the most important jobs, is to absorb light energy from the cosmos, from the sun, from this room. Its only job is to evaluate this environment. Is this safe? Is this okay? It's not just the default mode network. That's like the end of the chain. The biological system is not. In 1994, when our Institute of Health said we all have a biosphere, in all illness, if you go to NIH's website, type in biofield, you'll see they say every illness starts in the field. So why are they giving people pills? Because the pharmaceutical industry runs this thing. When you have somebody who's got the solution and the problem, you've got a big issue. They produce the problem, then they create the solution. You guys are radical. I mean, this is totally different. Totally. That's why when you go back and you tell your friends about it, they go, you're crazy, you're nuts. Why would the government do that to you? Because the government gets paid. Not the government itself, but those people that run the government. They could care less about you. You've got to care about you more than anybody else. If you don't care about you, why do you expect somebody else to? So when you think about your cells and what's going on, we know that thoughts generate through the body. Bruce Lipton, who's a good friend of mine, I'm also the dean of brain-based wellness at Quantum University, where we talk about quantum physics and wellness. Bruce Lipton comes out all the time and speaks for us. He proved before anybody was talking about it that your thoughts change 3,200 gene expressions. You actually change your genes. Now, when do they change? Remember back in 2003 when they mapped the human genome? And they said, wow, we mapped 1%, that's it. The rest is junk. I'm going, what? We're running around 99% junk. No wonder I feel like shit. I'm all junk. But in 2018, medical science came up with a way to track what's going on with every DNA pair. And every 40 seconds, I'm saying about every 40 seconds, every DNA pair in your body changes. It adapts. It improvises. You are not the same person that started this lecture. In fact, 50 million cells per second have changed. Over the next 7 to 10 years, you're going to be totally different. You've already died hundreds of times. You are not the same person. That's why life happens through you, not to you. If you believe life happens to you, you're in trouble already. Life happens through you. You are in a stream. That's why when the Zen master said, you never step into the stream the same twice. That stream is not the same. We might call it the Mississippi. We might call it the Ganges. We might call it whatever name it is, but that's not the same river. The sediment at the bottom has changed. The water has changed. That's not the same river. You are not the same river. You are different. You are new based on the books you've read, the people you've entertained with, the foods you're consuming. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? How are you taking care of yourself? You change, you adapt, you improvise, you overcome, and you become the uniqueness that is you. You're still growing. My dad used to tell us, you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. So he had a big plan. He said, every year, and I still do this today, I always learn. Like I learned something from Dr. Vu. I mean, every day I'm learning something. And we got the technology now. You can either choose to go on YouTube and watch cats, or you can watch something useful. You can watch laugh videos too. Those are good. Laughter is good because it upsets the nervous system. It upgrades the nervous system. Laughter therapy is a really big thing. In fact, biohacking a few years ago, I did a whole workshop on laughter yoga. Because when I was younger, I had a person who was like a psychic. She said, you're going to start the circles of laughter. What's that? And I had a class where I had everybody come in, and I said, for $5, this was in Phoenix, I said, for $5, you can come to learn the ancient mantra for enlightenment. I got a lot of calls. They wanted to learn this ancient mantra of enlightenment. I said, you got to pay $5 for this. I can't give it to you over the phone. They're all calling, what's the mantra? What's the mantra? What's the mantra? No, you got to come. So when they're all there, it was so funny because they're all sitting in a group, and I had everybody talk about their fears. Everybody brought up their fears. So and you could imagine the room, it was really dark, and I'm a psychologist, so, I'm really good at digging in and getting people in pain. There's never been a psychological study better than 12%. And I challenge anybody to find me one. I'll give you $1,000. My profession talks people out of change because the more you talk about the problem, you get a better problem. You want to talk about the solution. So we're all talking, and they're all there. And then I said, okay, now you're going to learn the ancient mantra of enlightenment. So I go to the board and I put the word HA. I turn around. If looks could kill, I was dead. They're like, that's not an ancient mantra for enlightenment. I said, no. That's only part of it. And I walked back and I put ha. And still, they didn't get it. I said, I say ha, you say ha. I say ha, you say ha. So we all started laughing, and pretty soon the whole room erupted in laughter. And as soon as the whole room erupted in laughter, I said, remember your fear. They stopped. I said, I say ha, you say ha, you say ha, 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 ha. And then they started laughing. I said, remember your fear. Some people stopped. Most people didn't. They just laughed right through it. Everybody started laughing again. And there was one guy in the front that just wouldn't laugh. I said, look at him. He really loves his fear. If you fight for your limitations, you get to own them. And pretty soon he started laughing. Everybody started laughing. By the end of the seminar, I had everybody go around. I said, what was your fear? Nobody could remember it. Because laughter wipes out fear. Those two opposing forces. Most people spend all their time in their fear instead of in their laughter. This was a technique in NLP, but I had to figure out how could I use the circle of laughter. I still do it with groups today when I'm training therapists, but we call it the blah technique. I say, when you're listening to somebody, you say blah, blah, because whatever you're saying doesn't matter. That's your story. You're really good at your story. Congratulations, you got a great story. But your story's not going to get you out of here. You got to change your story. You got to disrupt the status quo, do something different. And that's your cells are listening, by the way. So when we think about small wins, there's a part in your brain we're going to talk about a little bit later. There's a part in your brain that says when you face a challenge and you overcome it, you build something called resilience. But if you cower away from your challenge, if you're going through the dark night of the soul, I've never seen a superhero movie or watched one where they didn't go through the dark night of the soul. They had to overcome something of meaningful importance. Once they did, they had a superpower. Imagine you're an alcoholic, and now you're not, because you can say no to alcohol. That's a superpower. Maybe you had bad relationships, and now you can notice that bad relationship, and you don't get into it. That's a superpower. You all have superpowers. When I wrote the book, Awaken the Genius, there's a chapter in there where I said I was blessed to be the son of an alcoholic. I get asked that question all the time when I send that out to radio and TV. Why do you think you were blessed to be the son of an alcoholic? Because my dad got help. He showed me I didn't have to be an alcoholic. And by the way, the number one law of psychology says you can't be a behavior. So why are they holding meetings all over the world where people stand up and affirm, I'm an alcoholic? Then the subconscious mind has to prove them right. I say, how many people go get a six-pack before they go to the AA meeting, just in case they need it? Like somebody trying to stop smoking. I got this pack of cigarettes just in case I need it. If you buy it, I guarantee you've already planned to smoke them. So you got to plan ahead of time. And this all happens with small wins. So complete something. When you do something hard, it tells the brain, I can do hard things. You've got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. Most people aren't willing to do what they need to do what they want to do. They just want to skip past it because we're in the social media. We're in the social media world now. Everybody gets the best of everything. I love the Christmas card that you send out. It says, I hope your life is as good as your Facebook post. Because very few people say, oh, I had a shitty day today. It's terrible. This happened to me. It's always glorious on Facebook. That's where you want to hang out. So when we want to rewire this default network. What we know is that takes energy. When we did our studies in Brazil, we did a study with opioids. Opioids were only approved for 4 weeks of use. That's all. But we all know people that get on opioids, they can't get off them. because they gave them a pill without a skill. So what I said was, they were doing this study on opioids. I said, everybody in this study has to have opioids because they're getting this surgery. I'm not really about it. I had surgery myself with no drugs, no anesthesia. My dad hypnotized me. I had my shoulder cut open. They put a piece of my bone from here to here, put a screw through it. I don't remember it. I was in a deep state of trance because the most powerful pharmacy on earth is not Walgreens or Walmart. It's your human brain. And if you use it, you can activate it. I had a guy that worked for me that got third-degree burns all over his whole body. They had to take these steel wool and scrape off the bad skin every day. I got him convinced that what they were doing was giving him a loving massage, and it felt like warm butter. While everybody else is screaming, he's smiling. They're just scraping it off. Because this reality is not what you think. This is a projection of reality. It's not reality itself. This is your version of an infinite number of realities happening at the same time. You get the choice to either be the victor or the victim. You get the choice in any moment in time to say, I'm going to rise to the occasion, I'm going to bring the energy I need to this solution, or I'm going to cower in the shadows and say, somebody else made me do it. Something else happened to me. So as we do it, now when he was talking about it, we always teach the technique, pause, break, and breathe. Dr. Vu talked a little bit about that. That technique, if you can just, anytime something happens, instead of reacting, because, we've all been in arguments and fights and things like that, and you say, oh man, I wish I would have said something different. I wish I'd have done something different. You don't have to talk right away. Life is happening very fast in the beta brain. That's the only place, by the way, there's time. When you slip into alpha, there is no time. Pause, break, breathe. Now you give your subconscious the most powerful computer on earth to give you a solution. And by the way, you have an infinite number of those solutions, not just one, an infinite number if you learn to do critical thinking. You rehearsed your life. That means every night before you go to sleep, as you're doing that 4-8 breath, going to sleep and releasing the tension in your body, you're thinking about your day, and everything that was good, you're going to color coordinate. You make it bright and brilliant. You make a success reel. Today is a success. Something wonderful is going to happen to you today. Now, there's going to be some shitty things too, some bad things, some things you don't want. You're not going to get your way all the time. That's not reality. Don't think everything is going to go right just because you know how to go to a level like in Silva and manifest parking spots, which is one of the big things they did. The reality is that we have 8 billion other people manifesting too. Has anybody here seen the thing on YouTube that's synchronizing metronomes? The guy takes 200 metronomes. He starts them all at different times. Within 3 minutes, they're all synchronized. We found it takes 7 minutes to synchronize the cells in your brain. So when somebody says, what's my algorithm? My algorithm is based on science, real science, with feedback from the brain. I know how to train your brain 100% of the time, all the time, because we've done it with millions of people at universities all over the world. Your brain does the same thing as those metronomes. If you don't synchronize those hemispheres, they dysregulate. Just like in the video, you'll see after 3 minutes, they start dysregulating. Everything in the world is cyclic, not just women. Everything is cyclic. So we got to work with the cycles, get into the cycles. There's going to be lows today. So what? It's okay to feel bad. You know what's common with every negative emotional state? Every emotional state has this in common. Lack of breathing. If you have a little kid, you know what I'm talking about. When they come up and they're screaming and they're angry, you say, just breathe, just breathe. They won't do it because they know as soon as they breathe, the anger goes. Depression, fear, all these things vanish with breath because in the breath is more than oxygen. There's prana, energy. That energy is instructing you with instruction codes that are telling you what to do next. Your body is biologically set up in a field of information. That information is there for you. It's happening through you, not to you. But you can stop it if you want. You can be fearful. You can have anxiety. You can have stress. He says, okay, that's up to you. That doesn't mean it's not there. Somebody says, the sun's not out today. I said, yes, it is. No, we got clouds. We have clouds, but the sun's still out there. You know what I mean? So you got to get the clouds out of the way so you can see the sunshine. It's always sunny, not just in Philadelphia, in your life. So as you think about these things. So I want to show you what happens to the body because we can measure this now. And somebody's about 15 years ago, because since 1986, when we invented the very first personal light and sound machine, people have been asking, prove to me this works. Because when you're doing something with the brain, we can't just open it up and there's not a dipstick to check the oil. But the nervous system is a good gauge because your brain isn't just between your ears. The brain between your ears actually is the stupidest one. It's like a Google tablet. It doesn't work unless it's connected to the field. Your gut brain, by the way, when somebody has a severed spinal cord, but you can still digest food, your heart still beats, you still metabolize, you still do. This brain is much more intelligent. It's running the biological system. But the most important brain is your heart brain. That's why heart rate variability, all of you that have Whoop watches and Oura rings and all these other metrics, they found out that the brain and the heart, 40,000 neutrino cells, is sending twice as much data to the body as the body sends to the heart. It's also sending codes in the form of information to every cell of your body. You are an information system. Stress inhibits that. They can measure it. So we can measure it. What I did is I didn't go to Whoop or Oura, which is only 60% accurate, by the way. It's not true information. They make it up. I went to the people that actually founded HRV, that actually have the patents on HRV, because there's 27 different parameters we can get from your heart, and they have them all, but you have to pay them for them, and a lot of these companies won't do it. But I didn't want to compromise. I wanted the best data. That's why my research, we got Researchers of the Year in Asia, because our data cannot be refuted anywhere in the world. I can measure your nervous system in 5 minutes, tell you where you're at, do a biohacking technique, show you what it's like afterwards, and I can tell you if it's really doing something or not. And I've seen some real good stuff, and I've seen some really bad stuff. Somebody says, oh, this is going to move your nervous system. I said, fine, let's test it. And by the way, we're coming out with this. I have it in my pocket just by chance. This is a prototype, but we're going to make it little so everybody can have it. Instead of it being $4,000 like the one downstairs, this will be only $300 with everything that's in it. And you can track your own biometrics, but it's real data, not made up data. We can even measure the field of your energy, your chakra centers, your spinal energy, your meridians. All of that is a code being sent to your heart as information. So this is me going to Madrid, because when I had to convince Tom Brady to use BrainTap, he said, why would we, he was already using it, but I wanted him to use it with TBRX, which is their health division. I said, well, when you hear people say the home team has an advantage in pro sports, I said, there's a big advantage because when you get in an airplane, every hour in the air is like getting an X-ray. And your biological system has to adapt to that X-ray and down-regulates. And usually, I'm on the board of Radiation Nation with Dan DeBond, so I have a lot of gear. When I travel, you'd think I'm going to battle or something. I'm wearing this jacket, looks like chainmail. I got my hat, I got my underwear, I got my shirt, because I know what happens. But in this trip, I decided not to wear all that. I just want to see what happened to my body. You can see I went from 76 stress level to 109. That's really good. By the way, I had an emergency room doctor at 5,000 stress. And he was still operating. He was still doing things. So what happens when I land? I do BrainTap, I'm right back to 85. Because just like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they get hit. You're going to get stressed. What are you doing about it? You can't take a biological to get this result. It takes 4 to 8 hours to get the biological to improve. You can get an immediate boost, but it's not going to give you the results. You are an electrical being. Now, the bottom number is even more important. Because how does your nervous system regulate? Heart rate variability is really important, but nervous system variability is even more important. When he's doing the laugh therapy and you're going up and down, that's what you need to practice. Breath work, that's what you're practicing. That's brain fitness. So down below, I'm at 128. That's in the good range. I went all the way up to 183. I brought it down. If we can go from being stressed to being relaxed at the drop of a hat. I love it when people say, I can't sleep. I got to do this sleep protocol. You do whatever you want. I'm going to do BrainTap before bed. I'm going to beat your score every time. My wife sends me her scores almost every day, 95, 98, 93. He's not a biohacker, but she does BrainTap. Because when your brain starts regulating, you sleep normally. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So red light therapy, you probably all know about this, but I want to just tell you why it's so important. When we put red light therapy into the body anywhere, now we chose the ears and we use blue lights in the eyes because it's the lowest incremental light. And the blue light bullshit that's out there, I got to tell you, it's not true. Now, this screen's sending out some really bad blue light. That's true. But if you take blue light out of the equation, if you're wearing your biohacking glasses during the day before 6 o'clock, you're going to get seasonal affective disorder. That's what happens. Sad. We need blue light. We live in a blue light planet. It's what triggers melatonin in the cells. But after 6 o'clock, yeah, put on those glasses. Do your thing. If you're in front of the computer screen for a while, put those on. Do those things. But during the day, you want to get as much of this blue light as possible. That's what's going to make you healthy and make your body function. But red light therapy is a real game changer. And for red light, our cells, when we introduce therapy, now we do it through the ears because all the blood in your body passes through your ears every 3 to 5 minutes. So if we're going to get blood into the brain, the blood that goes through your ears actually cools or heats the brain. So the blood from your ears goes right into your brain. So we're going to dope it there. It's called photobiomodulation. And I'm fortunate because my science officer, he wrote the book on red light therapy, literally with Dr. Hamlin at Harvard University, Photobiomodulation in the Brain, Francisco Cedral, he's my science officer. So this isn't just talking out the side of my head. This is true facts. What happens is when that red light therapy gets into the hemoglobin, travels around the body, it's going to find a cell that has, it's about to die. If that energy can get there before that cell dies, that cell will magnetically draw that energy into the mitochondria. That mitochondria will then start up the Krebs cycle. It will reinstruct the cell. It will actually come back to life as its original self. Not as the same cell, a new cell with its original programming. You get a new cell. But not only now what the cell does while that energy is resident there, it doesn't only spit out one ATP. So imagine in the middle of that cell, there's an arm going around. Every time it hits 12, it spits out one ATP molecule. When you have red light therapy, every time it goes around, it spits out 32. To put it in perspective, if you have a Tesla, it takes 32 minutes to charge. You could charge that Tesla in 1 minute. That's how we could take the brains of these people 55 to 65 years old and get them off the dementia scale in less than 6 weeks because we delivered energy to the brain. It wasn't a supplement problem, although if you add good brain supplements, it's going to help it. If you add activity, we got these people after the study. We did add nutrition. There's a lot of great nutrition out there that you can use. We also use physical therapy. You got to get the muscles going because they're also going to get that BDNF. We could get faster results. But the real deal is we got to get energy to the cells. Red light therapy is the best way, and they've probably got a bunch of them here at the thing. So when we talk about self-talk, remember we talked about it earlier. When we think about what you say to yourself, you're either bringing yourself down or not. And I only have to tell you about holidays. When the holidays come, we all have that family member, when they come to the holiday celebration, they go, oh gosh, I wish they weren't here. They drain me. They're energy vampires. Because your mitochondria, who you're sitting next to right now, you're like those metronomes. You are synchronizing with each other. You're organizing information around each other. In fact, the communication you're having within yourself is much more valuable than what I'm having. Just by being in here, you're changing yourself. You're changing the cells at the molecular level, at a quantum level. You're communicating. It's more than nonverbal communication. It's light, sound, and vibration. You are the generator. And you're always seeking balance. That's why you go up to somebody and say, I get a good vibe from this person, or I get a bad vibe from this person. Because we know we have BS detectors inside if we'd listen to it, but we have nose blindness. Just like if you live next to a dump, you don't smell anymore and somebody comes up, how can you live here? It smells so bad. Our brain is really good at omitting information. That's why we have to go into meditation and create what they call the child's mind, the beginner's mind, like in Zen Buddhism. You got to have that beginner's mind every day, new, different, it's fresh. There's no answers like the answers today. All the answers of yesterday don't matter because there's only one moment in time you need to really worry about. It's called now. The past is behind you, the future is before you, but you live here. So why spend your time dwelling on the past or contemplating the future? There's already a plan for you. In fact, when I read Autobiography of Yogi, there's a place in there, and when I go to India, I actually am on the schedule to get it done. There's a place over there where they have everyone who visits that place, they already have their life played out for them on leaves. They've already written the whole thing. And I met Dr. Vivek Sharma, the head of Gautama Buddha University. And he said, I went there when I was a kid. Everything they told me has happened. It's written. I said, can you get me a scheduled appointment? I haven't got it yet, but I'm on the schedule. I'm going to fly over there because I go over there 3 times a year. It's already written. You've already done this before. This isn't your first rodeo. You do it over and over again in your head, but you've already done it all before. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna was struggling and Krishna said, they're all dead anyway. You've already died thousands of times before today because it's not you that's going to die. When they've done tests on people dying, they've weighed them. They lose an average of 3/4 of an ounce. What is that 3/4 of an ounce? That's you. You are that quantum energy. You will not die. In quantum physics, they say all energy transforms. It doesn't die, it's not created. So just like they say in the Bible, all souls were created at the same time. You're not going anywhere. You're not going to end. But what are you going to do along the journey? I always tell people, my grandma was a great example. She lived in 93 and she says, I wasn't eating meat at that time. I was a vegetarian. I've changed my tune since biohacking. So I do eat red meat once a week, to get that in my bloodstream because I got to have it in my body so I can be with other meat eaters, and things like that. But she goes, I hope when you get older, I hope you're going to be satisfied with your life. Like this was some big sacrifice. I said, Grandma, you complain about your health every day. I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. I'm doing this to feel good today. That's the nice thing about biohacking. You do things that make you feel better today. You don't have to wait for your reward. You eat healthy, you're going to feel better today. You work out, you're going to feel better today. So think about that. And it all starts with your words. So when you think about these pathways, I already talked about it, is when you combine this language, the emotion, now you get what you emotionally feel, not what you psychologically say. So let's say you stand up in front of a mirror and you say, I'm wealthy, but you can't pay your bills. Guess what you're manifesting? Lack of paying those bills. You have to ask a better question of your brain. What would it be like if I was wealthy? What car would I drive? What house would I own? What relationship would I have? How would I know I'm there? Then the brain it has to create the scenario. It's called surface tension. It has to create the life in which it solves that problem because your brain is a goal-striving organism. If you instruct it right, it will do everything for you. If you think you have the answers, you've already lost. You don't have time. You don't even run your own life. Most people feel like they're Freddy Krueger's driving the bus and they're chained to the back of the bus. I'm going, oh, my body's given up on me. I can't believe it. God's given up on me. No, God has really nothing to do with it. You have everything to do with it. Now, you can work with God, but he or she's not going to step in if you don't help out. So when you think about long-term benefits, what we're talking about is you have to have optimism, courage, and persistence. Now, I want to show you, this is the brain. This is the most important one. When we measure brain scores, brain energy, this is actually measuring mitochondria energy in the brain. So I had 86 at the time. I fly there. I'm just sitting in a plane. I fly over 100 times a year. I don't get stressed. In fact, I've had the plane go down, and my wife's going, did you feel that? I go, no, I didn't even know anything happened. I mean, I'm totally not even there. But it went down to 64 just by taking this flight. I didn't do anything. I probably watched a movie or read a book or meditated, whatever. I wasn't present. Then as soon as I land, I do a BrainTap session. I'm back up to 80. My brainwaves didn't change that much because I can control my brainwaves. So, but most people we measure have about 60 to 90% delta while they're awake. You've probably heard the expression, the masses are asleep. I always say they're not asleep, but they want to be because of inflammation. The brain's saying, go to sleep, we can solve this problem, but not while you're up doing it. You can't clean the house while it's burning. You've got to stop the cleaning, take care of the fire, then go back and clean the house. But most people don't ever stop and clean the house. Now, why do we use 10-cycle music? When you're listening to music, there's something called the Mozart effect. They've done this in classrooms. We've done this. We have schools in India right now that don't start school until they listen to a BrainTap session. They call it brain prep. They saw the whole school's GPA go up. They do it first thing in the morning. They do it when they come back from lunch. They get them into what's called the SMR brainwave. That's sensory motor rhythm. That's the one as you get older and better looking, right? That's the one that atrophies as you age. And so, but it's also the one that hurts for autism. It's where all our cognition is. It's between beta and alpha. Just a small brainwave. It's kind of like theta, just a very small brainwave. So this music, this 10-cycle music, synchronizes the hemispheres, makes you smarter just by playing it. So if you're doing anything at home, like you want to learn something, put on some classical Baroque music or something like that, and they've proven that it helps. Now, we've encoded our music very specifically to do, it could be gamma, it could be theta. Our music is encoded to the brainwave frequency that we want you to have, and we can track that through brainwave analysis. So this is neurotransmitters. A lot of people think that you need more melatonin, you need more serotonin, more acetylcholine, more whatever. The reality is that you have the greatest pharmacy on earth. You're just not triggering it. Now, how do those neurotransmitters get triggered? By brainwaves. That's the only way they get triggered. And they get triggered during sleep mostly, but you can do it during meditation, relaxation techniques as well. But during sleep, you go through these cycles. And if you go through enough of these cycles, so imagine this, 2015, every physiology book in the world, you turn to the page that says the lymphatic system, and you see it only goes to the neck. Everyone's lymphatic system only goes to the neck. That's impossible because in medical school, they teach you wherever there's a blood vessel, there's a lymph vessel. But for some reason, every book in the world before 2015 stopped here. But during a sleep study, a doctor noticed there was a system of the body that activated, like X-Men. It activated during sleep. During level 4 sleep, it activated a system called the gliolymphatic system. You have a system of the body that only activates during level 4 sleep. This is what detoxifies the brain. So if you're not getting into that deep sleep, you're not activating it. So why are brainwaves important? First thing in the morning. If you use an alarm clock, I'm going to beg you not to do that. That's the worst thing you can do for your nervous system. Change it to something beautiful music. You're entering into a new life. You were just wherever you're going to go when we leave this place. Now you come back and it's like, now what just happened? Remember earlier when I said your liver pumps 25 grams of sugar into your bloodstream? You just ate a candy bar before you got out of bed. You're now chasing, we call it a glycemic nightmare. You're chasing sugar the rest of the day. The average American hits their alarm clock 3 times. That means they ate 3 candy bars before they got out of bed. Then they ate a bagel and a banana because they're eating healthy. You know, that's what they think. So now they can't win that day. I say drink your coffee at 10 o'clock, or drink, better yet, like Dave Asprey learned, at 2 o'clock. They don't drink it in the morning where he was when he learned how to make bulletproof coffee. They drink it in the afternoon, because in the afternoon, guess what happens to you? Because the sun is your mitochondria for the solar system. It's beaming codes to you. Wherever you're at in the world, your body drops in temperature 2 degrees at 2 o'clock. Everybody, at one time, in that time zone, drops. That's why the Queen has tea time. You know, but we don't need tea, coffee, or chocolate. What we need is to reboot our brain, because this biological system we have was all coming from one place, the Serengeti. And what happens in the Serengeti at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Everybody's taking a nap. Nobody's running around chasing and trying to kill each other. They're taking naps. The lion could be sleeping right over there, the zebra's sleeping over here, because it's too darn hot. And even though we think we've been around a long time, we haven't. These bodies have been around millions of years longer than us. And that biological system, when the Hopi Indians said 7 generations are influencing them, and then neurophysiologists and epigenetic scientists said, you know what? 7 generations are influencing our cellular information. How did they know that? There's something about these ancient traditions that's not just happenstance or myth. They're actually finding out that they're truths. You are influenced by your family's family. It's not just their nervous Nellies and now you're nervous. You actually have the vibratory memories of their life up to the moment of conception, of your mom and dad, their mom and dad, their mom and dad, their mom and dad. It's written within you. That's why when they took ducks, they took a duck and had a chicken hatch it. The duck still went to water and started swimming. It didn't act like a chicken just because the mother was a chicken. It had the DNA encoding as a duck. You have the DNA coding of a duck or whatever you are. You know, whatever you are. That's why if you ever have children like me, I have a boy and a girl, they have totally different personalities. And they had them from birth. It's almost from the very beginning, you know what they're going to be. And I had to start working on one of them because they were a pessimist like me. I could see it in them. But guess what? We're all descendants of pessimists. That's why you're here. Your genetic history is a bunch of paranoid people that lived. because the outgoing people got killed. They did all the crazy stuff. We got the genetic code of a bunch of paranoid, so we got to change that code. So what happens when you do with the neurotransmitters? So when I take off, I've got 84% of my neurotransmitters. I land, I got 68. I do my BrainTap, I got 77. But the most important piece is the one below, metabolic rate. What causes your metabolic rate? It's not the food you eat. If you have HRV, you'll believe this. Next time you eat, check your HRV. What does it do? It goes down. Your HRV gets crushed when you eat food. Every time, all the time. You get mitochondrial health and metabolic rate by the light that you bring into your body and the light you transmit out of your body. So what we're showing here is on one side, the blue is how much energy is coming into the body. The red is how much you're giving out. As long as you're giving out more energy than you're bringing in, your body's a fat-burning machine. Most people we measure are the opposite. They're storing more fat than they're burning. It's a function of your nervous system more than it is a function of your table. Now, you can eat foods to do that too. You can use the biological system to adjust the nervous system, but that's only one piece of the equation. Your parasympathetic and sympathetic are so much more important. So we already talked about ATP production and how that works, but also we can look at HRV, but we don't measure just the HRV here. We measure the communication between the brain and the gut, because these three brains working together create a synchronization that creates health. You can't fix your brain up here without fixing your brain here. Have you ever heard of leaky gut? If you have leaky gut, I guarantee you have leaky brain. And Dr. One here, who came to my office from the Swiss Institute, he brought me what they call energy biotics. They actually have a probiotic now that changes all your gut biome. It makes it back to your ancient gut biome. And they're with like Buddhist monks' gut biome. Imagine if you could get injected with Buddhist monks' biome. That's what we do. You can go to my YouTube channel and see the video. I interviewed the guy on it. This is so important because 54% of who you are or more is not you. It's not human. You're a bunch of bugs. And you got to get them all flying in the same direction because they're fighting with you all the time, especially if you eat a bunch of junk food. This group's probably not it, but when people are eating poor foods, you're feeding the bad bacteria. And things like that. Now, down below, I usually function a little bit younger than this, but on this trip, I was functioning as a 39-year-old. Usually, I'm a 31-year-old. When I landed, I was a 47-year-old. Then when I did my session, I was back to a 40-year-old. Your nervous system will tell you what your age is. And we've correlated this with every longevity study, every way to measure telomeres and all of these things. But this is measured against real people, real data. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. Now, this tenacity hub that we talk about, this part of the brain, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, we are hardwired to overcome things. We're designed to overcome, adapt. It's not just the Marine Corps. Our brain is designed to do that, but we can fight it. But the more we do it, the more we overcome, get into a cold plunge, do all these crazy things we do in biohacking, that's teaching our brain to get resilience. If you don't have resilience, you don't get results. I love it when people say, yeah, Dr. Porter, I just want you to get rid of all my stress. I go, that happens one time in your life. It's called death. Without stress, you couldn't function. Right now, you're in a stress battle every minute of every day. It could be good stress or bad stress, but you're in a stress battle. So we need to embrace the stress. We don't need to work on stress. We need to work on capacity for that stress. You've probably heard that we only use 10% of our brain's capacity. The reality is you use 100% of your brain's function, but we only use a small percentage of its capacity. How do we increase that capacity? Neuroplasticity. We need to build more neurons, neural pathways. I don't have enough time to go into that, but you can look at it on my YouTube channel. So when we talk about these things, so we use frequencies. This is the one that's most important. The one down below, this is telling me out of all my scores, how do I rank against people my age? I was 54% better than anybody my age when I started. I went down to 36% better. I wonder how bad people are who are 63. I'm now 64. But then when I was back to 50% after doing the session. You want to stay above the curve, not below it. Normal is not normal. When you think about when you get your blood test, those normals are not normal. Because when you take the elite athletes, you take the people that are really working on themselves, that's normal. Because before we had our houses and our TVs and our cell phones and all the amenities, we had to work every day. When we got up, the light came in, that flicker of light turned on our brain, and we were part of the food chain. We were up running. We were hunting and gathering. We were doing our thing. At the end of the night, what did we do? We'd meet by the fire. And when we meet by the fire, there's something magical happening that biohackers do every day. You ever been mesmerized by a fire? You just sit there and watch it? That fire is burning at 10 hertz frequency. Every mirror neuron in your body is synchronizing to that fire. That fire is also putting out infrared light. They were biohackers before they knew it. Now, I don't know too many people that binge watch logs. When the logs are done, you go to sleep. They don't go, you know what, there's another log out there. Go get that other, let's cut that other log. Let's watch the next 14 episodes. But if we can click on Netflix and keep going, rolling to the next one. So we need to change that. We already talked about the DNA code. So those of you that don't know BrainTap, I'm going to invite you down to see it because I don't know of any technology. I'm saying any technology that will shift your nervous system like BrainTap. I'm not just saying it because I created it for myself. I already retired once. I sold my franchise company, and 10 years later, nobody was advancing this technology. I said, I can't retire. I got to co-invent BrainTap. I didn't know it was going to be called BrainTap at the time, but I said, I have some new ideas, new ways to do it, but nobody was advancing it because it's too darn simple. Even Tom Brady said, can we increase the price? It's not enough for pro athletes. They're not going to value it because it's not expensive enough. There's a saying, spirit is simple, but man is complex. It's not expensive. It's your life we're talking about here. So there's 3 times a day we're asking you to do brain fitness. The morning, we need to upgrade the SMR. You can do that through alkalized breathing, which Dr. Vu did with you. We can do daytime activities. We reboot. We did a study at Google and Microsoft where just doing a 20-minute session, these Google and Microsoft programmers got 26% more work done during the day. That equated to a day and a quarter more work being done. Their sleep score improved 74% just by doing an afternoon session, offloading stress and getting them to do it. At night, you can do the 4-8 breath, or you can do a delta session. Now, we have sessions for each of these at BrainTap because these are the times you need to train your brain. It's not meditation, it's brain fitness. You can do your meditation. Usually that doesn't do anything for you. I'm going to tell you right now. If you do breath work with it, I will say it will do something for you. But if you're just sitting there thinking about your thoughts, that's like sitting in your own stew. It's not going to do anything. You need new thinking, fresh ideas, new energy. And this is my new book. So I'm going to encourage you to go to brainfitnessblueprint.com because if you go there, I have a course that you get $1,000 worth of perk benefits if you pre-buy that book. It comes out on the 21st from Hay House, and we'll share all those things with you. And downstairs we have I guess that's the last slide. Downstairs, you can go down and try it. I know that most of you have never tried BrainTap, so if you haven't tried it, it's one of those things where you got to get in the water and swim. Once you get in the water and swim, you're not going to change. And they can see if you can get a scan. They have one down there, the NeuroCheck, but they don't have enough for everybody, so you got to sign up for that. But they can show you where you're at right now, what happens after it. In our NIH study, we showed a 27.3% improvement. I want to thank you. I hopefully get a little brain fitness and help me to reach 1 billion brains. Thank you.